Hello and welcome guys, and welcome to this video lecture session specially made in English language to facilitate students who do not understand Hindi. And yes, I have been a little late in making these videos because first I was busy in making videos in Hindi, which are quite popular in North India, and then finally I have got on to my students from South who are unable to understand Hindi language. So yes, I'll be teaching entirely in English, and that will be the preferred medium of communication in this entire video lectures. And the subject which we are going to start today is cost and management audit. And yes guys, you are in group 4 of your final examination, and the next step which you have to take is to become a professional, to become a CMA. So yes, indeed a very important step of your life, indeed a very important stage of your life. Once you clear this stage, you'll become CMAs, which will be a matter of proud for not only you but your entire family and your friends and everyone else. So yes, let's gear up for that final step and let's take the big plunge into being a professional. And yes, my best wishes with all of you, and all the good luck to you to that you are able to successfully cross this important milestone of your life and become a professional CMA. Sir, how does becoming CMA matters? Why are you giving so much leverage to professional degree? Why are you giving so much leverage to becoming a professional? Sir, why? The reason is that professionals have got monopoly in doing certain things. So what do you mean? Before I tell you what I mean, do you know what do you mean by monopoly? Yes sir, of course we know about monopoly. Monopoly means when you are able to do one thing entirely by yourself and you are not faced by competition from anyone else, and that is known as monopoly. Exactly. And what happens if someone has monopoly? Growth, more money, more profits, and less opportunities. Yes, that is the result of monopoly. And becoming a CMA will give you monopoly. So how? You will be able to do cost audit, and only you will be able to do cost audit in entire India. Only you. There is no other person who can be appointed as a cost auditor of a company. So thing is very clear guys. Tax anyone can do, even a graduate can do, chartered accountant can do, company secretary can do, MBA can do, BBA can do, anyone can do tax consultancy and tax related stuff. Accounting, anyone can do. Accounting is a basic thing which can be done by a graduate. Even a 12th person can be employed as an accountant at some company, can be done by anyone. But one thing which will make you class apart, one thing which will give you an edge over other professions, one thing which will give you pride and which will give you money, which will give you a lot of recognition and growth in market is cost audit. Cost audit is something which only you can do and no one else can do. And hence CMAs have monopoly over this subject, cost audit. And therefore it is really important, not only from a exam standpoint, not only from the way I'm teaching you, not only from the standpoint of getting good marks in your examination, it's important subject, but it's also relevant in your practical life, because entirely through your entire life, whether you are in job or you are in practice, you'll be faced with one important thing in your life, which is cost sheet. And you should be able to review that cost sheet, make that cost sheet, or if you are an auditor, then audit that cost sheet properly. So this is one such subject. Cost audit is one such subject which will form a spinal cord for you for your entire career. So that is the relevance of this subject, cost audit, which we are going to start today. 100 marks paper in your examination, and of course I'm a teacher, so I'll be very frank with you and very open with you. Let me tell you very clearly, at the end of the day, it's ultimately an audit. You have studied audit in your paper number 12B in your inter, and audit means theory. Audit means something which is to be mugged up, which is to be ratified in Hindi language. It is to be crammed. Audit is all about mugging up. Audit is all about ratification. Audit is all about cramming words, or because if you do not reproduce the exact language given in the module study mat in your examination, then guys, examiner do not give marks. That is the hardcore reality of cost audit. No, examiner won't give you marks. You have to, as it is, verbatim reproduce everything from your book into your examination paper, and only then you are going to score marks in this paper audit, because it's entirely theory. Please understand a hard fact about this subject. Yes, it's a subject which will which will give you growth, which will give you monopoly, etc., etc., etc. For sure, it's all of that. But along with that, it has to be mugged up in a very, very proper fashion and absolutely in a flawless manner. You have to mug it up. Now the question is, sir, if we are not good in mugging up, then what? Sir, if we are good at practicals, we know how to practically solve questions well, but when it comes to mugging up things, so we can understand and reproduce in our own language. Sir, won't that work? Undoubtedly it won't work. You cannot reproduce in your own language. You have to reproduce in the language given in the study material. It won't work. It won't fetch you marks in this subject, cost and management audit. And if you have any such notion, the notions which I have told you in past 5 minutes, then you are mistaken. You are wrong. Whatever I've told you in last 5 minutes about the mugging up, about the cramming of this subject, about the way the subject is to be studied is absolutely incorrect, because I know that the first thing which goes through your mind is that, sir, it's ultimately an audit, so it has to be mugged up, it has to be crammed, it is all theory. Please open up past 3 examination paper or past 4 examination paper and see for yourself whether this paper is theory or practical. Open the book which I have given you. Just open the last chapter of that book and you will see for yourself that past examination paper contains 70 marks of practical subject and 30 marks of theory. 70 marks in the examination is all about solving sums. Practical questions, solving practical questions is 70 marks portion of your syllabus, and only 30 marks is dedicated to theory. So if you have this notion in mind that, sir, we are going to start a theoretical subject, 100 marks we have to attain in our examination, that is why we are studying. So we are weak in theory, but we have to perform, we have to mug up. Do away with all these notions. These are incorrect notions. This is a practical subject. I want you to approach it in a practical manner. I want you to be with me in the class over the questions, over the sections which we are going to study. There are very limited sections which we are going to study in this subject. Practical applicability of those sections will be asked by the examiner. Those sections will not have to be crammed verbatim. You have to apply them practically in your examination. So those sections should also be not only learned by you but also be understood in a practical fashion. Its interpretation should be understood by you, and only then can you be able to solve the question paper well. So you have to approach this paper just like CFR, just like direct tax. It's a practical paper. 70 marks of questions comes in the examination. Questions means practical solving questions, just like CFR, and only 30 marks, 30 to 35 marks comes as theory. And that theory is also not technically strictly theory, but it's more of application of theoretical principles. So yes, good news for those who cannot mug up well, those who cannot do theory well, and bad news for those who are not able to do practical well, because whatever is your category, guys, this subject is a practical subject and we have to study it practically, because our entire career is focused on this subject, and this subject is not only going to benefit you in your examination but also in your long-term approach, in your long-term analysis of your career. That is the focus area of this particular subject. So let's start the very first chapter of this subject, basics of cost audit. Now, what do you mean by audit? First of all, let me start by asking you a simple question. What do you mean by audit? What is audit, sir? Audit means verification. Yes, absolutely. Audit means verification. Audit means, sir, checking. Yes, audit means checking. It means verification. It means checking. Then it means scrutiny. Yes, absolutely, it means scrutiny of something. We don't know what thing, but it includes a scrutiny, verification, checking of something. It ensures accuracy of certain things. Now sir, what are these certain things? So guys, whatever word you put before audit, it becomes verification of that word. If you put tax before audit, it becomes tax audit, which means it is a scrutiny of taxation matters of a company. If you put financial audit, then it becomes financial scrutiny of the financial books of accounts. If you put GST audit, then it becomes checking verification of GST records of a particular company from a GST angle, that GST is not is properly paid by the enterprise. That is GST audit. And if you put cost in front of cost audit, if you put this word cost in front of cost audit, then it means cost audit related to cost, verification of various cost of an organization. Now what are the three costs which an organization deals with? Guys, it is, we have studied in cost sheet thousands of times. It is material cost, labor cost, and overhead cost. These are the three costs which we have studied in our all through in our life. In cost sheet, we are adding these three costs to make a particular cost sheet. So cost audit means an audit which is related to cost of an entity, cost of a product. And cost can be any cost. It can be employee cost, it can be labor cost, it can be overheads cost, it can be administrative cost, it can be production cost, any cost, be it a very small cost, be it a high cost, selling cost, marketing cost. Audit of entire cost is known as cost audit. So would that mean that we are not going to study how is accounting done? So guys, accounting forms the basis of cost. So to an extent, we will be bothered about accounting also. So we will be taking hint of accounting from the accounts, the books of accounts which are maintained. So in a way, we will touch about accounting also. Okay, sir. So sir, would we not check the compliances with say secretarial records, whether the secretarial records are properly maintained or not? No, we are not going to check secretarial records. That's a company secretary's job or a chartered accountant job. We are not going to do that. Okay, sir. So next is, would we see whether financial statements are drawn up properly or not? No, we would not see whether financial statements are drawn properly or not, because financial statements are to be converted into cost records, and while doing that conversion, we'll ensure that cost is being depicted properly in the cost sheet, and that's all. So how would we ensure that cost is being depicted properly in the cost sheet? Are there any norms which will suggest how are the cost to be recorded in the cost sheet? Of course, yes. Guys, we have rules, the rules 2014, which we are going to study in our examination, in our classes which are relevant for your examination. We are going to study the rules. Rules are an important point of check to know whether the cost are being put in the cost sheet in proper manner or not. So yes, rules are one of the important checkpoints. Second is standards. Guys, we need to study the standards pretty well. Cost accounting standards. Just like you study accounting standards in your accounts, similarly we have cost accounting standards. So why are cost accounting standards used? Guys, for doing allocation and absorption of overheads. This is an example. One of the standard deals with this. So do you remember that rent expense was to be charged in the cost center, and there were 3-4 methods to charge the rent cost. One method was area, other method was number of employees, other method can be hours used, other method can be a sales revenue derived from a particular cost center, and there can be some more methods as a combination of these methods. So there are various methods to do absorption and allocation of a particular expense, and any industry is free to adopt one of them. So if any industry is free to adopt one of them, then there will be no comparability between the cost of two companies, because they have chosen different methods of allocating their expenses. In such a situation, cost accounting standard will tell us that which kind of expense allocation is important in which kind of industry or which kind of expense. Yes, cost accounting standard will give us a hint that if you are allocating rent, say for example rent, then how should you allocate rent to particular cost center? This is the hint which cost accounting standards will give us. And this is the way we are going to deal with cost accounting standards in our cost audit. So let's start the first chapter, basics of cost audit. And to demotivate you a bit because it is a demotivating thing, guys, this chapter comes only for 5 marks. So yes, it is a theoretical chapter which will tell us some background about cost audit and some things which have happened in cost audit in past, and it holds about 5 marks of weightage. Let's start. So let's start with history of cost audit in India. So the provision of cost audit was first introduced in 1965. So cost audit was introduced in 1965 by the Companies Act, and your institute was incorporated in 1959. So almost 6 years after the incorporation of your institute, this section was introduced, cost audit was introduced. So in 1965, cost audit was introduced. Now what was the reason? Why was cost audit introduced in 1965 in the company's law? What was the reason? Reason was industrialization. So guys, soon as industrialization happened, there was outburst of industries in Indian market. There were companies, big business house which are doing business in India. There were corporations, multinational companies were not there at that point in time, but there were domestic players who were big. There were PSUs who were doing business in India, and all these organizations became so big that it was virtually impossible to manage their cost and to have a sense of what is their pricing strategy, how much cost are they incurring, how much profit are they infusing on that particular cost. It was really difficult to manage all that stuff, and therefore at that point in time a need was there to manage cost of these industries, to know how are they pricing their product, what was the cost of production, what was the profit, and what was the price. To know this, cost audit was introduced. So large scale industrialization took place after independence in India. A lot of concessions and facilities were given to the entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs were eligible for concessions, were eligible for facilities like rebates in taxes, direct taxes, indirect taxes. All those things were given to the entrepreneurs to establish industrial undertakings. With advent means start. With start of massive industrialization, nuances, there were some problems, nuances like excessive pricing. So people were pricing their product excessively. They were pricing their product highly to exploit the customers. They used to price their product highly, and they used to say our cost of production is too much, that's why our price is too much. Under invoicing of imports to avoid custom duty. So they were under invoicing imports to avoid custom duty. Overpricing of exports to claim higher export benefits. So whenever there were exports, they were raising their cost of production, they were raising their prices to claim more export benefits. Cropped up. These problems cropped up, like undervaluation of imports, overvaluation of exports, then high pricing, stating that cost of production is high, that's why our price is high, stating all these reasons. These problems cropped up. The higher prices were often justified, citing high cost of production. Hence, to regulate the price mechanism in core industries like cement, sugar, textile, provision of cost records and cost audit was introduced. So guys, when this provision was introduced, at that point in time, it was strictly limited to very few industries like textile, like sugar, like cement, which were the basic industries. Because at that point in time, it was not envisaged that costing was so important for even other industries. It was not envisaged. At that point in time, cost sheet was primarily prepared for these basic kind of products like cement, sugar, textile. Going forward, cost audit and cost records was opened up to other industries as well, to other products as well, as history proceeded. Now, the question arises, is cost audit applicable only to limited companies or to all companies? The answer is to limited companies. Sir, is statutory audit applicable to limited companies or all companies? Guys, all companies. Whether you are producing jute, milk, rubber, garments, anything, statutory audit is applicable to you. But cost audit is applicable only to limited companies, only to given set of companies. So cost audit is not pervasive, is not applicable to all the companies or all the industries across the nation. So yes, initially it started with basic industries like cement, like sugar, like textile, and it was introduced on the recommendation of Vivian Bose Commission, Datta Commission, and Shastri Committee. So these were the three committees which were made to introduce cost record and cost audit provisions in India. So back then, when the provisions were inserted for cost audit in 1965, there were not sufficient number of cost auditors in market. There were not sufficient number of cost accountants in market, and even the institute was pretty new in the market. So at that point in time, a right was given to chartered accountants and other professionals to conduct cost audit. So yes, this was a difficult time, and this was a difficult obstacle to overcome at that point in time. So let's read: chartered accountants permitted to conduct cost audit. So prior to 1974, the section provided for appointment of cost accountants or chartered accountants or other persons possessing the prescribed qualification to conduct cost audit. So cost audit was open to chartered accountants, was open to other persons who were ready to do cost audit. Now this was a threat because now monopoly was diluted to duopoly, or even three people were involved. So the third person was never notified. So third person was never involved. But chartered accountants and CMAs were both given permission to do audit. So monopoly was reduced to duopoly, and it is not a good scenario to have. So the provision for prescribing chartered accountants was introduced as it was felt that there may not be sufficient number of cost accountants to cope up with the work. However, post 1965, the number of practicing cost accountants were greatly increased, and hence in 1974 the proviso was the section was amended to withdraw chartered accountants and other persons from conducting cost audit. Perfect. First win for us. In the year 1974, the provision said that it's only cost accountants who are permitted to do cost audit. But still, a proviso was still left in 1974. What was that proviso all about? A proviso was still included in the section. So section was amended, but proviso was included that if the government may appoint a chartered accountant or other person in case sufficient number of cost accountants were not there. So there was a sword hanging at the neck of cost accountancy institute that if sufficient number of cost accountants are not there, then government is authorized to give the power of cost audit to chartered accountants. So it had a pressure on Institute of Cost Accountants of India to produce more cost accountants. And yes, institute did exactly the same. The government could not invoke proviso ever. Since 1974 till 2013, government did not invoke this proviso to have this power given to chartered accountants. It did not. So it was really felt that the institute did a good job of producing sufficient number of cost accountants, so that there is no need of any other professional to intervene with us. But yes, proviso was there. So sword was hanging all through on our necks, and this proviso was never invoked under the erstwhile law. In 1956 law, this proviso was never invoked. Finally, in Companies Act 2013, the proviso was also done away with, and the sole authority to conduct cost audit be vested with cost and management accountants, popularly known as CMAs. Finally, after fighting, it was just like fighting for your independence. It was just like a freedom fight. So yes, after a lot of fighting, and I have seen this fighting personally because I've been teaching the students of cost accountancy since 2008. So I've seen the institute struggling with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs to do away with this proviso, and finally in 2013 Act, which is the latest act, this proviso was also done away with. So now monopoly of doing cost audit is only and only with us, with you, cost accountants, future CMAs. Hence, the provisions of cost audit have gone through upheaval and have thus evolved over a period of 50 years. And it would not be an exaggeration to state that, okay, so 50 years struggle was involved in cost audit provisions. And yes, we can easily say, so there is a Hindi song which is a patriotic song which is sung in North India a lot, and this is belonging to the era of our independence, 1947, that we have bought this kayak out of storm. Now please keep this section safe. So this section is really it has faced a lot of upheaval. It has faced a lot of turmoil. Dynamism was there in this section, but finally this section is only and only reserved to whom? To cost accountants. Now it is our responsibility, cost accountants responsibility, Institute of Cost Accountants of India's responsibility to keep this section of cost audit safe. Paradigm shift from erstwhile cost records to audit rules. Now there has been a lot of shift in cost records, the way cost records were maintained earlier and the way cost records were required to be maintained earlier. There was a shift from earlier regime to new regime. So guys, earlier only 3 products, as I've already told you, only 3 products were to be audited: sugar, cement, industrial alcohol. Some more basic products were to be audited, but then the need was felt to enlarge this scope, and today 33 products plus 6 products are under purview of cost audit. So yes, there has been a change. There has been one more important change, that earlier companies were specified for audit, which means that it was the order was given in name of a company which stated that Reliance Industries Limited, manufacturing petroleum, is to be audited from perspective of cost audit. So this way, scope of cost audit was limited to that particular company. Later on, it was moved to industry, which means entire India, whosoever is producing petrol will be incorporated, will be eligible to get cost audit done. Later, it was transferred to this particular scenario. So this shift from company-based approach to industry-based approach was a major shift which happened in cost audit arena. And there was one more major shift which has happened, guys. So cost records were earlier made industry specific. So sugar industry were given a different format, industrial alcohol industry was given a different format, petroleum industry was given a different format. Later on, it was thought prudent that all these formats should be merged into one common format, and that one common format should be followed for all the industries. And that is how we have evolved these cost records from being multilateral, which is impacting everyone separately, differently, to unilateral, which means that they will have a consolidated, a common format for cost records of all the industries, be it sugar, be it industrial alcohol, be it banking industry, electricity industry. Whosoever is covered under cost records, they will be required to get their cost records made in a similar fashion. So paradigm shift from erstwhile cost records and audit rules. Company-based regime shifted to an industry-based regime. Prior to 2001, the cost audit orders were issued on individual companies on selective basis in an ad hoc manner. This was amended to industry-based orders. Then multiplicity of rules to unity of rules. Earlier, MCA notified separate cost accounting records for 44 industries. This implied that multi-product companies were required to comply with multiple rules, and hence multiple cost audit reports were made for same company. However, this was changed to a unified system of rules whereby the rules were merged into single set of rules. Therefore, the menace of multiplicity of cost records and cost audit report was resolved. So this is the way how cost audit and cost records have evolved over a period of time. It has been really, it took a lot of time to evolve these records, but now they have come up to a very matured stage in front of us, which we are going to study for examination and for the practical approach also. And yes, there were some lacunas in law, there were some lacunas in rules, and there were some problems in rules which were subsequently handled by the institute pretty well. And yes, today we are in an era where the much more evolved and advanced version of rules are available with us. So yes, now let us come on to the Companies Act 2013. Okay, so why do we study Companies Act 2013? Because guys, Companies Act 2013 gives you a backbone to perform this audit called cost audit. So why do we need backbone to perform cost audit? Okay, I'll give you an example. Today, I'm going to come to your home. Yes, I'm going to fly from Delhi to your respective homes, and I want to audit your almiras, your room, the room in which you stay. All my students are under an obligation to get this audit done. You have to get this audit done. I will come to your room and I will audit your room, and I will check whether there are some nuances or there are some bad elements which are kept in your room or not. I want to check them. What is will be your answer? Your answer might be, "Sir, you can come. We don't have anything bad in our room. You can come check it. Go. We have no problems in it." But if I tell the same thing to a company's owner, if I go to, say, Mr. Tata and say that I want to audit Tata's books of accounts, then Mr. Tata would say, "Who are you?" I would say, "Sir, I'm a cost accountant, CMA." Mr. Tata would say, "Then what should I do?" "Sir, I qualified my inter in first attempt with a rank." Mr. Tata will say, so what?" "Sir, final also, I completed with a rank in first attempt." Mr. Tata will say, so you will say, "Sir, I want to do cost audit of your cost records. Please give me your bills, invoices, documentation with respect to your cost, material cost, labor cost, overhead cost, and I want to audit each and every cost which you are doing in your business. I want to audit it." Do you know what will Mr. Tata say? Mr. Tata will say, "Do you want to get out yourself, or should I call the security to push you out of my company?" Yes, this is what will happen, because there's a reluctance which is shown by every company for any kind of government audit. If any law prescribes some audit, then audit primarily is a reluctance source for any company. Company will say, "No, I don't want to get myself audited. I am doing everything in a perfect manner and I'm not faltering in any law whatsoever. So I do not need this audit." Company will always be reluctant for that particular audit. But the moment you tell Mr. Tata that, "Mr. Tata, Companies Act is requiring you to get cost audit done. There is a law which you have to follow. If you do not follow that order, if you do not follow that law, then you will be faced with penal consequences, prosecution, and even lockout of your company." Then what will Mr. Tata tell you? If you tell Mr. Tata this, that it is a statutory law and you have to get it done, then what will Mr. Tata tell you? Mr. Tata will tell you, "Sir, will you eat Domino's pizza, or will you eat pizza from Papa John's in today's lunch, sir? I insist that, sir, dinner should be brought from the best hotel of our city. And yes, I would insist that dinner should be brought from Taj. You are the auditors of the company. And sir, please welcome. You are welcome to our office. Please have the cost records. Take the cost records and get the cost audit done." So do you see the shift in their attitude? What is the reason for shift in the attitude of any company? The reason is backing law which supports the audit. If you do not have a backing law to support your audit, then your audit is ineffective. Then your audit is futile. Then your audit is not having any force. No company will follow it because no company wants any audit. So to support any audit, we need a backing law. Just like to support our body, we need the spinal cord. Similarly, to support any audit, we need a backing law. Sir, one more question before we come on to the law which backs up cost audit. One more question, sir. So question is, when management doesn't want an audit, when management is so reluctant for performing any audit, when management is saying, "No, we do not want any audit," so why are we forcing upon audit on their heads, on their company? Why are we forcing? We should not force, no. It's an independent world. They should be independent of doing whatever they want to do. Then, so why are we forcing audit on them? Guys, we are forcing audit for the stakeholders. Shareholders are not privy to the company's operations. The creditors are not privy to the company's operations. The creditors cannot come inside the company and check whether the financials are drawn in a proper manner, whether the functioning is happening in a proper manner. Shareholders cannot come inside the company to inquire what is happening and what is not happening. Shareholder can at max ask questions in AGM. Now, in such a situation where the stakeholders of the company, which are Government of India, first of all, for their taxes, GST, etc., many other things, various laws, insurance laws, regulatory laws, FEMA conditions, income tax laws, all these laws for their sake, for sake of creditors, for sake of people who are financing the company, loan givers, banks, creditors, for all these people's sake, we need to get the audit done. So audit is not primarily for the management of the company, but audit is for the stakeholders. Stakeholders include shareholders, creditors, bank, loan, every person who's connected with the company in any manner whatsoever. That person is known as the stakeholder of that particular company. And we have to do audit for those stakeholders, because those stakeholders need a critical assessment of what is company up to, because they want to take decisions on whether they want to continue with the company or not. So the audit is primarily focused on, not wholly on management, a bit on management also, because management also benefits from audit, not wholly on management but also on stakeholders. Stakeholders are the people who are benefited from any audit, and therefore there has to be an audit and a law behind it which can support audit. So if I presume that this entire body is audit, this is a human being which is an audit, this body, then the spinal cord which is there in this body is nothing but the law which backs up audit. Because if this spinal cord is not there, then that audit is a weak audit, or I would say it is an ineffective audit, because management would not get it done. Even if it would get it done, then it would not adhere to the recommendations of that particular audit. If there is a law, then it is obligation of the management to adhere it properly, get it done, and even take the suggestions of the auditors to rectify things which are not rectified in that particular organization. So yes, the law which gives us backing, us means cost auditors backing, the law which gives us strength, which gives us strong arms to audit any company, that law is Companies Act 2013. We are referring to the chapter 10, Audit and Auditors of the Companies Act 2013. So chapter name is chapter number 10, Audit and Auditors. Let's see a brief overview of the chapter, sir. Section 139 relates to appointment of financial auditors including rotation. 140 is removal, resignation of auditor, giving of special notice. 141 is eligibility, qualification, disqualification of auditors. 142 is remuneration of auditors. How would auditors get remunerated? 143 is powers and duties of auditors and auditing standards. 144 is auditor not to render certain services. There are certain restrictions which are imposed on the auditors from doing certain things, certain activities, if they are the auditors of the company. Then that is section 144. 145, auditors to sign the audit report. Auditor has to sign the auditor report. That is section 145. 146 is auditor to attend general meeting. Auditor has to attend the general meeting of the company. 147 is punishment for contravention. If any of these sections are not complied with, then 147 will tell what are the punishment to the auditors as well as the company. This is section 147. Then last but not at all the least, section 148, which is our section, and we can confidently say that yes, this section gives us power. Guys, the name of the section is Central Government to specify audit of items of cost in respect of certain companies. So the government made it very clear that this audit is not applicable to all the companies. This is applicable only to certain companies, which will be specified in this section or the rules. And this section relates to audit of items of cost. And yes, I can confidently say this is my section. This section will give me power, will give me wings to fly high in the corporate world. And this section will give me a monopoly, or has given me a monopoly, to do cost audit. And the exclusive monopoly in India is vested with cost accountants, CMAs, who are going to perform cost audit as per this section, section 148 of the Companies Act 2013. Sir, you've said so much of background that we are eager to study this particular section. Okay, so with pride and with confidence, let's start section 148 of the Companies Act 2013, part 1. So we'll be studying this section in 3 parts, part 1, part 2 and part 3. So depending upon what is the relevance of a particular part on a particular chapter, we'll study it in 3 parts. Okay, we are starting with the first part. Notwithstanding anything contained in this chapter. Okay, this is known as the non-obstant clause. What is the meaning of this clause? Guys, this clause states that this clause gives priority of this particular section over any other section of the chapter. So this 148 section will override 139, 140, 141, 142, 143, 144, 145, 146, 147. This section overrides all the other section. This is the meaning of these words, notwithstanding anything contained in this chapter. And this clause, this phrase is popularly known as non-obstant clause. A clause which gives ultimate powers to this particular section to override any other section of the chapter. Okay, sir. The central government may by an order. So the central government has got the powers under this section to order what order? In respect of such class of companies. Guys, please remember, not all companies, but such class of companies. So there are certain companies on which this section will apply and not all the companies. Okay, sir. Engaged in production of such services or providing such production of such goods or providing of such services. Okay. So the instructions of the government can be given only to two category of companies. Number one, producing some goods. Number two, providing some services. So, sir, does that mean that if I'm into retail business, if I'm a retailer, if I'm a wholesaler, then I won't be eligible to be I won't have implication of this section on me? Of course not. You will be out of this section if you are a retailer, if you are a wholesaler, or if you are doing just trading, then you are out of purview of this section. Okay, perfect, sir. So this section is applicable only to two people. Who are those two people? People who are producing goods, people who are rendering services. Only to these two categories of people this particular section is applicable, who are producing goods, who are providing services. Perfect, sir. So such companies, the companies which are producing such goods, which are in business of manufacturing certain goods, and which are in the business of providing certain services, this section is applicable only to these two categories of companies. Now, sir, the question arises, all the companies who are producing something are covered under this section, or from production category also there are some specific companies which will come under purview of this section? Guys, from production arena also there will be certain companies which will come under purview of this particular section. It's not that all the manufacturing companies are covered under this section. No, we have rules which will tell us production companies should follow these criteria, and if they are eligible and if they are above the threshold limits provided under these criteria, only then will they be covered under subsection 1. So we have further benchmarks for the companies who are involved in production to be eligible for this particular subsection. Okay, sir. So primarily only companies which are producing certain goods or providing certain services are eligible to be tested for this particular subsection. Absolutely correct. As may be prescribed. Okay. So which are those companies who are covered under this section? Not all the companies which are producing something, but only selective companies from those companies. Who will give the the prescription, guys? So I am referring to footnote 4. Footnote 4 says which doctor will give the prescription under this section. So which doctor will tell you that which companies are eligible for performing the cost records and getting the cost audit done? Guys, the name of that doctor is Companies Cost Records and Audit Rules 2014. So the prescription is given under these rules, that which are the companies which are required to get their cost records done. Those companies, those products, those services are specified in these rules, and only those companies are eligible to be covered under this subsection. Okay, now if I get eligible to be covered under this subsection, then what will I do? Let's come on to that particular part. Direct that. So central government will direct to such companies that particulars relating to utilization of material, utilization of labor, and other item of cost as may be prescribed shall also be included in the books of accounts kept by that class of companies. Okay, so do I get power to audit these companies? Do I get power? Answer is no. Section nowhere talks about audit. Section is requiring you to produce cost records. Oh, So the logic is, unless and until a company is forced to to make their cost records, how can they be audited? So precondition to audit is to make cost records. So section 148(1) requires a company to prepare cost records. So please mark this section as cost records section. This section is not audit section. This section is cost records section. This section will require a company to make cost records, and the companies which are eligible as per this subsection, those companies will be required to maintain details of three things. What are those three things? Utilization of material, utilization of labor, and other item of cost. And where do we find these three things? Sir, cost sheet. Simple. So this particular subsection is requiring you to prepare cost sheet. If you prepare cost sheet, then you are compliant with this particular section. So this section doesn't talk about cost audit, first of all. It is talking about cost records. Second, only those companies which are producing something or providing some services are eligible to be qualified under this section. So the order will state which companies which are producing or providing services should be eligible to be covered under this subsection. So not all companies which are producing something will be eligible to be covered under this section. Only certain companies will be eligible to be covered under this section out of the entire manufacturing industry or entire service giving industry. But this is for sure that retail sector will not be eligible to be covered under this section. However, having said this, I'll give you one hint in your mind that I will tell you one sector of trading which will be covered under this subsection in our chapter number 2. Not right now, but in our chapter number 2, I will give you a hint as to there is one sector, there is one kind of exception to this rule, that only production and service industries are eligible to get their cost records prepared. There's one exception to this rule. I will come on to that exception when we are in chapter number 2. Okay, sir. So this is a mystery which I'll resolve in, say, third class from now, third or fourth class from now. Okay, sir. Done. So there's a proviso to this section. Now, guys, first tell me, what do you mean by proviso? Proviso means an exception to law. So the section states the bare law, and proviso states the exception to law, that whichever the conditions in which the main section will not be applicable, exceptions to the main section, that is covered by proviso. So proviso states that central government shall, before issuing such order in respect of any class of companies, so before issuing such order means the order under subsection 1 of section 148, the order which we had referred to over here, this order, before issuing this order for class of companies which are regulated under special act, the companies which are regulated by a special act, before issuing order for those companies, the central government should consult the regulatory body constituted or established under that special act. So before ordering cost records to, say, insurance company, because insurance company is not established under Companies Act, it is established under Insurance Act. Before ordering cost records for insurance company, the central government should consult IRDA for insurance companies. Similarly, for banking companies, banking regulations should be seen before ordering any cost record for banking company, because these are special companies, and for special companies the cost records should also be prepared in a special manner. Because I'll give you an example. For banking company there's no material cost, there's no material. For insurance company there's no material cost. Labor cost also might be relatively less in a automated company which is driven by all automation. Like banking industry is all driven by automation today. It's not the physical banks which are really popular. Online transfers are very, very popular. So all these companies which are regulated under some special act, those companies are to be consulted. Those acts should be consulted. Those regulatory bodies should be consulted before ordering cost records for them, because their cost records will be drafted in a different manner. Got it, sir? Okay. Okay, now coming on to subsection number 2 of this section, section 148 subsection 2. Guys, now this section is the section for cost audit. Yes, this is our pride, this is our backbone, And this is the section which will give us power to conduct cost audit. Let us read this section. If the central government is of an opinion, so if central government opines, if central government is of an opinion, which means that not all companies will be covered under cost audit. Only those companies which central government thinks should be covered will be covered in cost audit. So if the central government is of an opinion that it is necessary so to do, that is required, by order, direct that audit of cost records of such class of companies which are covered under subsection 1. So the primary condition of getting covered under subsection 2 is to get covered under subsection 1. If you are out of subsection 1, then you cannot be covered under subsection 2. So audit can happen to only those companies which are covered under subsection 1, which is cost records. Yes, sir. Got this link between subsection 1 and subsection 2. There is a link between subsection 1 and subsection 2. So first we will test the eligibility of subsection 1, and if that eligibility is established, then we will come on to subsection 2. And then we will amalgamate these two subsections and say that cost audit is applicable to you. So first condition of cost audit, you should be eligible to prepare your cost records under subsection 1. And cumulatively to be satisfied condition, guys, the second condition, which have net worth of such amount as may be prescribed. So the second condition is that your net worth should be over and above a particular limit. Now, sir, who will tell that net worth? Guys, the rules 2014 will tell us the net worth. Okay, sir. So let's complete the section 1 once. Such amount as may be prescribed shall be conducted in the manner specified in the order. So you have to conduct cost audit of those companies which fulfill two conditions. Condition number 1, cost records are prepared for them in subsection 1. Condition number 2, their net worth or turnover should be over and above the limits prescribed in the rules. And these are the two conditions which should be cumulatively satisfied to conduct cost audit of any organization. Perfect, sir. We got it. So let us see this equation, guys, which is given in this chart. Company should fall under subsection 1, cost records. Then net worth should be above the limit. So what will happen? Cost audit under subsection 2. So there's a plus in between, which means that both of them should be cumulatively satisfied. Both of them should be taken together. Got it, sir. Now coming on to subsection 3. Subsection 3 states that the audit under subsection 2. Now who will conduct this audit? Audit under subsection 2 shall be conducted by a cost accountant in practice, who shall be appointed by the board on such remuneration as may be determined by the members in such manner as may be prescribed. So who will be eligible to conduct cost audit? It will be only a cost accountant in practice. So guys, once you qualify your CMA final, then you will not be a cost accountant. You will attain membership. Then you will be a cost accountant. Then you will be eligible to write CMA before your name. And if you if you take certificate of practice, then you will become cost accountant in practice. So after becoming a member, when you become a cost accountant, a choice is in front of you. You can go to job, you can go to practice. If you choose job, then you will not take COP. But if you choose to do practice, then you will take certificate of practice from the institute and will start your own practice. This is how you will perform in your daily routine. So who will be eligible to conduct audit? Is it a person who is into job, or is it a person who is into practice? Answer is, it is a person who is into practice. So cost accountant in practice plus means both the conditions are to be cumulatively satisfied, appointed by the board of directors as the cost auditor, is equal to cost auditors. So two conditions are to be cumulatively satisfied. Number 1, you should be cost accountant in practice. You should have your own practice. Number 2, you should be appointed by the board of directors of a particular company, because every cost accountant in practice is not a cost auditor. To be eligible to become a cost auditor, you have to be appointed by the board of directors of that particular company as the cost auditor of the company, and then you become cost auditor of that particular company. So two conditions to become a cost auditor. Number 1, you should be cost accountant in practice, which means you should have a COP. Number 2, you should be appointed by the board of directors of that company to be auditor of that particular company. Then you become a cost auditor. Now, provided that no person appointed under section 139 as auditor of the company shall be appointed for conducting audit of cost records. Now, who is appointed as auditor under 139, guys? It is the financial auditor, which is a chartered accountant. So there cannot be a situation where same person is doing financial audit also and cost audit also. Even there cannot be a situation where same firm having one partner as a CA and one partner as a CMA is performing, the partner who's a CA is performing financial audit, the partner who's a CMA is performing cost audit. This is also not permissible. So same firm, same person cannot do financial audit as well as cost audit of the same company. This is a rule which has been prescribed under law, which is a very fair rule. I mean, what is the point in same person coming again to check your books, who has already checked your books once from a financial standpoint? He's coming again and checking your books. Doesn't make sense. So financial auditors and cost auditors are two different persons. Provided further that auditor conducting the cost audit shall comply with cost auditing standards. Of course, there are two standards which are to be complied with. One is cost auditing standards, second is cost accounting standards. Any cost auditor should comply with both of them. The next explanation for the purpose of this subsection, expression cost auditing standards means such standards as are issued by the Institute of Cost and Works Accountants of India, constituted under Cost and Works Accountants Act. So those standards are defined in this particular section. Then last section of this part 1. So guys, 148 contains 8 subsections. 8. We are studying 4 over here. 2 we will study somewhere else and 2 we will study somewhere else. So fourth subsection of 148, and yes, you have to remember all these subsection well. Guys, I am not going to teach you a lot of sections, and we don't have a lot of sections in this particular subject. So at least the bare minimum sections which we have very less sections. Please remember those sections. It will be beneficial for you to remember those sections. So 8 subsections of 148, we have to remember all 8. Okay, sir, if you say so. So an audit conducted under this section shall be in addition to audit conducted under section 143. 143 is the financial audit, and it is mandatory for a company to get a financial audit done and a cost audit done if it is eligible to do so. Company should not say that, oh, I've got my financial audit done, I am not required to now do cost audit. No, nothing like that. If you are eligible to get your cost audit done, then you have to get your cost audit done. If you are eligible to do your financial audit, then you are required to get your financial audit also done. Both these things are separate, and both sections should be complied with separately. This is the intention of this particular subsection. Okay, so let us now see what is the definition or technical meaning of cost audit. Cost audit is the audit of cost records. It involves an independent examination. So guys, it is a very, very important element of auditing, that auditing has to be independent. Independent means it has to be unbiased. It has to be free from influence. It has to be pressure free. You should not be exerting any pressure on the auditor to perform audit, and it should be an independent examination of cost records. So this word independence hold a very important element of any audit, that if audit is not independent, then audit is not valid. So to have authenticity and validity of the audit, auditor has to be independent. He should be free from any pressure from the company's side. So this is an essential ingredient. This word is of paramount importance in definition of audit, that cost audit is an independent examination of cost books, cost accounts and cost statements and subsidiary and prime documents with a view to satisfying the auditor that these represent true and fair view. So you have to satisfy the auditor that these books of accounts or these cost records or these cost statements give a true and fair view of the cost of production. This includes examination of appropriateness of cost accounting system. What is the system which is incorporated in an organization? What kind of allocation and absorption techniques are used by the management? How is management pricing its products? All these things are covered under the cost system, the cost accounting system. Therefore, the cost accounting system is the most important thing which we need to study while we are studying cost audit. The second definition of cost audit is given by CIMA London, which is the verification of correctness of cost accounts and of adherence to the cost accounting plan. So this is a short definition which is given by CIMA London. Then third definition is given by the Institute of Cost and Works Accountants of India, which is a system of audit introduced by the Government of India for the review, examination and appraisal of cost accounting records and the attendant information required to be maintained by specified industries. So this is the definition which is given by Institute of Cost and Works Accountants of India. And guys, you from an exam standpoint, you have to learn any one of these three definitions. That will do. Usually a definition doesn't come in the examination, but still you need to revise, you need to learn one of them, any one of them. Okay, sir. Now let us study what is the relevance of cost audit. Why do we do cost audit? What is the use, benefits of doing this particular audit, which is cost audit? Audit as a whole is an important activity, but why cost audit? Why cost sheet is so relevant? Why costing records are so relevant? Let us analyze that. Number one, price control and regulation mechanism. So the first and foremost aspect of benefit of cost audit is that the price is regulated in a proper manner. The price is controlled in a regulated manner through cost audit. Now the question arises, sir, why do we want to regulate the prices? Businessman is free to choose the price at which it wants to sell its product. Why do we need to regulate, or why do we need to control, or why do we need to impose any restriction on the pricing mechanism of a businessman? Guys, there is a requirement from angle of rationing system. So rationing is to provide goods which are essential to the basic living of a human being. Those products are to be given at a very concessional or a very subsidized price. In that respect, rationing system was encouraged in India, which is now non-existent, almost non-existent. But for things like rationing, cost sheet and price regulation is required, and at that point in time, cost audit is the most important tool which is there with any company. Then the second important element is, the second important place where price control is required is drugs order. So drugs order means, guys, there's a law in the country which states that essential drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, the essential medicines, the drugs in which are put in medicines, those drugs cannot be sold for more than a stipulated price, and that price is determined by the government. Now wherever such laws are there, like pharmaceutical industry, like this law is there for certain drugs, wherever such laws are there, their costing and pricing is of paramount importance, because businessman is not free to choose the price. Price is determined by the relevant law, by the relevant act, which will impose the price on the management. And where would the law derive price from? It will derive price from the costing records. Whatever cost of production is there, the law will permit for a reasonable margin over the costing, over the cost of production, which means cost of production plus 5%, plus 6%, or plus 8%, and that will be the price of that particular product. So in places where the goods are regulated, the places where price are regulated, in those places we are really required to follow cost audit and cost records principles. And guys, let me tell you, for just for your information, paracetamol, we take paracetamol when we have fever. So paracetamol is an essential drug. It is covered under drugs order, and that drug is not to be sold beyond a particular price line which is determined by the Government of India. So yes, in these cases, cost sheet control, cost regulation control, and mechanism of controlling the cost forms a very important role. Next, to provide accurate and authentic information to the board of directors of the company, as well as the government about the cost and structure of cost. So wherever board of directors require cost of a particular product and they want to know the cost of production or the cost of providing of services, what kind of labor cost is being incurred, where do they get the information from? Guys, cost record and cost audit. Then Government of India. Where would Government of India get the details from? It'll again get the results from cost audit and cost sheet if they want the details of the cost structure of a particular company. Then to assess the performance of the company in terms of shareholders value, stakeholders value, in terms of profits of the company. So guys, costing profits are one of the most important elements which are seen by any shareholder or by any stakeholder to analyze whether company is performing well or not. Because overall, from a financial standpoint, company might perform well, but from a costing standpoint, from a costing profit standpoint, company might not perform well. So to ascertain whether shareholders value and whether stakeholders value is increased from a costing perspective, costing profit is required, and that costing profit is derived from nowhere but cost audit report. Then good practice in costing should support a range of both regular and non-routine decisions when designing the product and services to meet the customer expectations and profitability targets, to assist in continuous improvements in resources utilization, resources deployment, and to guide the product mix and investment decisions. So guys, a very well drafted cost sheet would give management insights into the costing structure of a particular organization. And how can those costing structures be improved? This guidance will also be given by the cost sheets and cost audit reports. So to have this guidance and to take informed decisions about the cost structure of the company and about how the company will proceed in future, cost audit report is required. So the three essential elements which are being discussed over here is to meet customer expectations and profitability targets. This is first and foremost a part of cost audit, that the profitability targets should be met, customers expectation with respect to profit should be met. Number two, if you want to improve your resource utilization, so if you are utilizing your machinery less than the optimum capacity, then in future you can actually increase your profits by increasing the utilization. That's it. Cost reduction is not required to increase profits. Even if utilization and capacity is increased, then profits can be increased. So in such situation, it is really important to analyze whether the costing structure of an organization or the cost sheet is appropriately reflecting the way the organization should work. So yes, meeting the resource utilization benchmarks. So your resource utilization should be really high. To meet those benchmarks, we need to have cost audit and cost sheet. The next is to guide product mix and investment decisions. So to guide what is the adequate product mix, what is the product. So suppose you are producing two products, which ratio should you produce the products to obtain maximum profits, plus in which ratio should you incorporate the inputs to produce to reap maximum profits. Those things can be very well taken care of if you are performing a proper cost audit, if you are performing analysis and check on cost records. So yes, these are the three benefits which are derived by cost audit or preparing proper cost sheet. So yes, these are the three benefits. The next is help protect the interest of the Indian companies from allegation of dumping. Now, what is dumping first of all? So guys, in an market where, so in a less developed market, which is underdeveloped countries, the cost of production is relatively high. And in highly developed countries, the cost of production is relatively low because highly developed countries have got good technology. So to destroy the markets of underdeveloped countries, the highly developed countries sell their products below cost of production to the underdeveloped countries. This is a strategy which they follow to destroy the markets of underdeveloped or undeveloped countries. So if cost of production is 10 rupees, then they will sell their products at 8 rupees. This is a wrong thing which developed country does for the underdeveloped country. They would just destroy the local markets of the underdeveloped countries, and they would then build upon their products inside the country, the underdeveloped country, and they would increase their prices subsequently. This is what is known as dumping. To reduce dumping, to reduce the ill effects of dumping, the government of the underdeveloped countries, they follow a policy of imposing anti-dumping taxes, duties. And these duties are equivalent to the um, ratio in which the product price will be come up to the mark. So let me give you an example. Suppose a product is selling for 12 rupees in the Indian market. The cost of production is 10 rupees and 2 rupees is the profit. Okay. So when 2 rupees is the profit, then guys, the foreign company, suppose it is supplying goods for rupees 8. The cost of production is 10, but they are supplying goods worth for rupees 8. In such a situation, the government of the underdeveloped country will impose an anti-dumping duty of 4 rupees to make the good equal to the price at which similar good is being sold in the Indian market or the underdeveloped market, so that there is a level playing field with the domestic players. So the imported goods are also at the same price, Indian goods are also at the same price. This is known as the concept of anti-dumping duty. Now, while ascertaining what kind of duty should be there and whether there is dumping or not, the first thing which we need is what is the cost of production. Because guys, if cost of production is less, then the company is not doing dumping. So today we see a lot of Chinese products in Indian market and in entire South Asian market. There are a lot of Chinese products which are being sold at a very, very less price. Is it dumping? Not entirely. Their cost of production is less. That's why they are able to sell at a less price. That is not dumping. Dumping is where the product is being sold below the cost of production. So if the country is facing a allegation of dumping from another country, then that country can produce a cost audit report before the other country to prove that their cost of production is less, because of which the product is being imported at a less price. So to counter the allegation of dumping, if you want to face the allegation of dumping from underdeveloped country, then you need to have cost sheet or cost audit report with you. If you have cost audit report with you, which is signed by a cost accountant telling you that the cost of production of this particular product is less, then you are safe. Then to become effective against anti-competition activity presupposes availability of reliable and authentic cost data. So guys, there's a law in India that competition cannot be permitted in an unhealthy manner, which means if two companies are amalgamating together and they are amalgamating with an intention to exploit the customers. So suppose there are only two companies in a particular arena. Let's presume that in India the telecom sector constituted of only two companies. One was Reliance, other was say Vodafone. There were no other companies. So these two companies would have fought with each other in a perfect competition scenario. And then these companies would have thought that why are we fighting with each other? Why not join hands? And if these companies amalgamate and form a cartel, then the prices of the call rates, they will go shoot up like anything. So to avoid unhealthy competition in India, there is a institution called Competition Commission of India, which is known as CCI. CCI is there, and CCI will restrict such amalgamations, such mergers which will happen to exploit the customers. Now, if you want to prove that we are not having an intention of having an unhealthy competition and we are not trying to exploit the customer, if we have to prove it, what do we need to produce before CCI? Guys, we need to produce cost sheet before merger, cost sheet after merger. Cost sheet before merger should disclose costing profit of say X. Cost sheet after merger should disclose the costing profit of X. This is how we'll prove that pre-merger and post-merger we have same profits, we have same price, we have same MRP, and hence we are not planning to exploit the customers by this merger or by this cartel. So to prove before a Competition Commission of India that we are not entering into unhealthy competition and our objective is not to increase profit by exploiting the customers, if you want to prove this, cost audit report, cost sheet is a strong tool. Of course, cost audit report is a signed document by a cost accountant, so it is much more authentic than any other document which we can produce before the CCI. So yes, to become effective against anti-competition activity presupposes the availability of reliable and authentic cost data. To determine arm's length price of transaction, guys, what is arm's length price? Arm's length price you have studied in your income tax section 92, and arm's length price means if you want to sell or purchase something from your related party, then the price should be equal to the price which you would have charged to an unrelated party under an arm's length condition. Now guys, one of the methods of computing arm's length price, so there are 5 methods. One of them is cost plus method, in which you take the cost of the company, you take the profit margins of similar company, and you add those profit margins in that cost and you compute the price of that particular transaction. In such a situation, you have to compute the cost, that is the basis of your pricing, and to compute that cost, guys, you need to have a cost sheet, and cost audit report is required in that scenario. So to compute the arm's length price, which is computed as a cost plus some percentage of your profit, to compute the arm's length price, you need cost sheet and cost audit report. So to determine the arm's length price of transaction entered into with the related party, like inter-unit transfers, you need cost audit. Then to ascertain the actual productivity and wastage, to ascertain what is the actual productivity and wastage of a particular unit or a process or a particular product, you need cost audit report. Then what is the objective of cost audit? Guys, objective of cost audit, the first objective is verification of cost records. You have to verify cost records. Sir, how will we verify cost record? Oh, as per the methods prescribed by company's records. Oh, there is some error over here. Okay, just cut it as per the, just cut the entire sentence which is written after it. Just cut that statement. Okay, sir, so after cutting, what should we write? Please suggest that also. Okay, so write what I'm asking you to write, guys. Write as per the monetary consideration, as per the monetary consideration received from the company, received from the company. Hey, sir, so we have to do our cost record, we have to verify our cost record as per the monetary consideration received by the company. So if company is going to give us more money, then we are not going to give the qualification. If company is going to give us less money, then we are going to give the qualification. So you are saying that we do this forgery in our audit. Guys, no, I am not asking you to do forgery in your audit. And that is why I am deleting these words which I have just written. No, you don't have to write these words. You didn't even think what are you writing before writing, guys. What is happening? See, how greedy have you become? You are writing the wrong thing. No, the thing which was written earlier was absolutely perfectly correct. You have to verify your cost records as per the methods prescribed by companies cost records and audit rules 2014 and as per the cost accounting standard. Cut the thing which I have just asked you to write and restore the original line. So what is this joke? Why are you playing this joke with us? Guys, this joke I always crack in every class, in every batch, in every session, to make you realize that this profession is a profession which would contain a lot of things which will lure you and things which will deviate you from ethical path. Do not deviate from ethical path. Please be restricted. Please be true to your profession, and profession will reward you. Because adopting wrong path, adopting incorrect means to earn money will definitely remunerate you in the short run, but in the long run, you will be at a loss. You cannot afford to deviate from the correct path or deviate from the correct way of doing things. And the cost records are to be prepared and are to be audited as per the methods prescribed in the rules only and no other way. I know in short run you might get some luring things from the management. Management might offer you a, say, world tour. to you and to your family. They do it, yes. If you find some good audit findings, that they offer you some bribe to drop off those qualifications, but you do not have to drop off those qualifications. This is a sincere advice from a senior who has done audit for 5 years of his life. Guys, don't misbehave with your profession, because if profession misbehaves with you, then you will be at a big loss. So this is an error which will remind you again and again and again and again that we have to be ethical while doing audit. Okay, sir, got your principle and got why did you crack such a joke. The next is detection of errors and frauds. Of course, you have to detect the errors and frauds which are there in the cost statements. So guys, just write over here that errors are unintentional and frauds are intentional. So this is the difference between errors and frauds. Errors are unintentional mistakes which creep in the cost records, and frauds are intentional mistakes which an organization does by intention. They are known as fraud. Determine inventory valuation. What is the valuation of inventory? How is inventory valued? You have to determine it. Guys, obviously inventory has three ways in which we can value inventory. One is FIFO, one is LIFO, and another is weighted average. So it is your prerogative which one do you choose. And one thing which we should always take care is that inventory valuation technique which is used once should be continued in future as well. It should not be so that management is changing its inventory valuation method every year. It should not be such a case, because consistency is a principle which we need to follow in every audit. And therefore inventory valuation is an important element of checking of cost audit. Then reconciliation of costing records and accounting records. Yes, cost profit is different, financial profit is different. What is the reason of difference between cost record and financial profit? Guys, the difference is under absorption and over absorption of overheads, financial income and expenses which are not inserted in costing records, but they are there in financial records. So there are some differences between financial profits and costing profits. You have to reconcile them. And yes, 8 marks practical question on reconciliation of cost records and financial records comes in your examination of cost audit mandatorily every year. So that is so easy. We did it in inter. Yes, the same reconciliation comes in final as well. But yes, the level is a little more in depth and the level is a little more technical. Okay, sir. Next objective is to help government in setting prices of regulated goods. So wherever there is a regulation to a particular good, like necessities, like wheat, rice, any necessary things, salt, sugar, all these things are regulated by the government so that their prices don't shoot up a lot. So these products are to be curtailed by the government. So it helps government to set the price of regulated goods. Then detection and prevention of abnormal loss of material and time. Wherever material and time is being lost abnormally, their detection and prevention is the responsibility of the cost audit, because cost audit has various ways to analyze which expense is being done in an overly more manner. So yes, detection and prevention of abnormal loss of material and time is objective of cost audit. Advising management on the ways to improve the performance. To improve the performance, we need to advise the management on how to improve the performance, and to make that advice, we need to analyze the cost sheet and cost audit report and cost audit elements of cost audit report. And while analyzing the cost audit report and cost sheet, we will come to know how to advise the management on performance. Then promoting good corporate governance. If we want to promote good corporate governance, which means we want to have transparency in our system, ethical, if you want to follow everything ethically, if you want to have a transparent system of disclosing everything to people, then of course cost audit report is an important element, because cost sheet is the basis of forming the structure of the organization. Because in cost sheet you have various kind of cost, and you are able to know where am I increasing my cost of production, because of which price is higher. So when I ascertain the elements which are increasing, which are leading to an increased cost, there the emphasis or the importance of good corporate governance comes into picture. And there I need to see if cost audit report and cost sheet gives a fair picture of good corporate governance. Yes, sir. Then what are the social objectives? Guys, there are certain social objectives also of cost audit. So society at large benefits from cost audit sometimes. What are the social objectives? Facilitation of fixation of reasonable price. Whenever we want to fix a reasonable price of a product, Like in rationing system, we take hold of cost audit report of that particular organization, cost sheet of that particular organization. Then optimum channelization, utilization of resources. Whenever we want to utilize our resources in the best possible manner, we take a rescue of cost sheet, because resources are very well dealt with in cost sheet, and in cost sheet we know which resource is being exploited to what extent. Therefore, optimum channelization and utilization of resources is done by cost sheet, by analyzing the cost sheet, because cost sheet contains previous year figures and current year figures. We compare both these figures to analyze if we have done well in the current year or not. Then it helps cost plus contracts. Guys, this is very, very important. In case of real estate or any infrastructure company, we have cost plus contracts. So government of India hires a particular contractor to build up a road, and then the government of India tells that contractor, hey, listen, whatever is your cost of production, I'll give you 5% over and above that as your remuneration. So this is an incentive to the contractor to increase its cost of production. He will absorb all the overheads in the cost, even if overheads are not related to production, to just show to the government that yes, my cost is higher, give me higher remuneration. In such cases, it's important for the contractor to get its cost audit done and give a cost sheet which is audited by a cost accountant to the government of India. So in case of cost plus contracts, like contract for infrastructure, it is really important for the for the contractor to give a cost audit report and a cost sheet which is audited by a cost accountant to prove that this is his actual cost of production, so that he can be adequately remunerated by the government of India. So in cost plus contract, it is really essential. Then again, availability of audited cost data is really required for escalation clauses. Escalation clauses means in the first year we'll give you 10% margin on your cost of production. Then in next year we will increase your cost of production by 5%, then give you margin. In the subsequent year we'll give you additional 5% escalation on your cost and then give you margin. So if your contract is in this manner, then again cost of production is to be audited, cost sheet is to be audited by a cost accountant in practice. So these are the ways in which a cost accountant is required to audit cost sheets of particular sector of companies to have its remuneration paid by the government of India. Like in real estate and in infrastructure contracts, which are cost plus contracts, we really need help of these cost sheets and cost datas which are audited by a cost accountant. Then highlighting the areas of inefficiency and mismanagement for the benefit of shareholders and consumers. So if you want to highlight the areas of inefficiency and mismanagement, then of course cost sheet will form a perfect basis, because cost sheet will have expenses of current year, it will have expense of last year. If you compare these two expenses, then you will easily be able to determine the places where inefficiency and mismanagement has arisen. So yes, cost data becomes a important element at that point in time also, where you need to prove that there has been no inefficiency or no mismanagement with a particular company. So yes, these were the social objectives of cost audit, and we have studied the objectives of cost audit. Today we have studied the definition of cost audit and what are the relevant sections which are there in cost audit. So yes, in our next lecture we are going to study some more sections which are related to cost audit. Then what are the independence requirement on a cost auditor, disqualification, qualification of an auditor, all these things we are going to study in our subsequent lectures. For today, as of now, let's close over here. Please revise all these sections, provisions and all these parts of the chapter which we have done till now, because next topic we'll escalate to a different level, to a higher level of this particular chapter. So yes, it will be beneficial if you revise this chapter before jumping on to the next video. All right, so we'll meet in the next video. Till that time, all the very best and happy studying.